Imagine waking up one morning feeling a tight knot in your chest even though nothing has gone wrong. You're safe in your bed, the day ahead seems calm, yet an invisible tension squeezes your lungs and your mind races with worries out of nowhere. Maybe you've been there, maybe you're experiencing it right now. This feeling isn't a sign that you're broken or failing, it's a whisper from your consciousness trying to get your attention. You sit at breakfast and everything looks fine on the outside. A warm kitchen, the soft morning light, maybe a loved one smiling across the table. But inside you're already anticipating calamity. What if I fail at work today? What if I embarrass myself in that meeting? What if something terrible happens? You've probably learned all the recommended tricks to conquer these thoughts. You try breathing exercises, reminding yourself nothing bad has happened yet, don't worry. You make to-do lists, set reminders, even pretend it doesn't bother you. It's okay, you tell yourself over and over. It's all in my head, but deep down something still doesn't feel right. Fear waits at the edges of your mind, guilt creeps in for not simply being okay, and then the spiral starts anew. For many of us, anxiety is a lonely companion. It can stalk you even on sunny days. You might recall planning a vacation or a special event, the kind that should make your heart soar, and instead finding your stomach twisting in knots as the time approaches. Perhaps at college, when you achieved top grades or won praise, instead of celebrating, you felt empty and uneasy, wondering when the other shoe would drop. Or at work or school events, while everyone seems to be having fun, a small voice in your head whispers doubt and dread. You might have friends who say, "You're so lucky, why are you anxious?" But they can't see the currents beneath your calm surface. They see your life on paper. They don't feel the undertow pulling at your confidence. Society often tells us anxiety is a problem to solve. Just relax, people say. Everything is fine, don't worry so much. Maybe doctors hand out pills or apps and programs promise to quiet those thoughts with breathing techniques or calming music. You try it all: meditation apps, cognitive tricks, therapy, maybe medication. For a while you might feel a little better, but then anxiety comes back with a vengeance, as if to remind you it's still there. But what if the usual story we've been told is incomplete? What if anxiety isn't just a random glitch or a personal failing? What if, as strange as it may sound, anxiety is trying to wake you up to something important? This may feel uncomfortable to hear. It might even feel frustrating. Another voice telling me to listen to my anxiety, you might think, but hold on. Imagine for a moment seeing anxiety not as a defect, but as a messenger, an alarm bell from your life that something's worth noticing. You might find it interesting that this perspective isn't just comforting fluff, it's been explored by many wise people. For example, psychologist Daniel Kahneman observed that our brains have two systems, one that feels and reacts and one that thinks and plans. Anxiety often comes from the first, more primitive system. What if we could bring a little of that second system's awareness to the alarm? Spiritual teachers across cultures have long said similar things. Buddha taught that craving causes suffering, and anxiety can be a form of craving or clinging. He suggested observing your feelings without judgment. In our secular context, mindfulness teacher Jon Kabat-Zinn has shown that simple awareness practices can greatly reduce anxiety and even alter brain regions related to fear over time. So right away you can see, this idea of anxiety as a teacher or messenger isn't new or naive. It's ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science meeting. That's the lens we want to offer you, not a quick fix, but a new map of what's going on inside you. In this video, we'll explore that idea in depth. We won't give you magic potions or one-size-fits-all life hacks. Instead, we'll offer perspective and understanding. We'll weave together insights from philosophy and science, drawing on thinkers like Alan Watts, the philosopher of wisdom, Robert Sapolsky, the biologist who studies stress, and the psychological insights of Carl Jung and Soren Kierkegaard. Our central argument is straightforward but profound. You're not anxious because something is fundamentally wrong with you. You may be anxious because you're waking up to life. By the end, you may still feel that anxious stirring in your chest, but you might see it differently, not as a flaw to fix, but as something meaningful to listen to. No false promises here, but a perspective that can be liberating once you accept it. Alan Watts, the British philosopher who bridged Eastern and Western thought, had a fascinating explanation for our modern anxiety. He noticed a paradox: the more we chase security and control, the more insecure and anxious we actually become. In fact, Watts said it plainly: the desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing. It's like trying to hold your breath forever. The moment you stop trying so hard, you relax. To hold your breath is to lose your breath, he liked to say. In other words, grasping for safety actually tightens that knot in your chest. Think about it. We live in an age where planning, goals, and safety nets are glorified. From childhood we're drilled: get good grades, choose a stable career, find the perfect partner, save for retirement. These all sound responsible, but according to Watts, it's like living in a constant state of breath holding. We build walls around ourselves: safe jobs, perfect relationships, detailed plans, imagining that will shield us from life's uncertainties. Yet each new wall creates another layer of tension. We worry about protecting what we have so carefully constructed. The roof, the bank account, the calendar, all of it becomes another object we fret over keeping in place. Watts warned that this is a trap. He said modern life is like an insecure breath retention contest. Everyone is as taut as a drum, scared to exhale. He wrote about a society constantly fortifying itself with thoughts and defenses, dividing into armies of opinions, fences, and clubs, and ironically deepening the very insecurity it sought to avoid. In a famous analogy, he compared people who crave stability to someone building a dam on a river. No matter how strong the dam, the river's flow will eventually find cracks. The very attempt to keep water still makes it restless. Life is more like a flowing river. To resist it causes suffering, to swim with it leads to grace. Watts drove this point home. Life only happens in the present moment, but most of us are stuck in the past or future. Imagine standing at a bus stop. If your mind is 10 years ago on an old grievance or 3 years ahead on a worry, you'll never really experience the warmth of the sun today or the smile of the stranger passing by. People often tell stories of being at a concert or wedding and all the while feeling disconnected, thinking ahead to bills or work. By the time the vacation or event arrives, they're exhausted by the anticipation and can't enjoy the moment. Watts would say, all that worrying about tomorrow is like gripping onto tarmac for dear life, useless, because tomorrow always arrives anyway and it's a surprise each time. In his book, The Wisdom of Insecurity, Watts drew from Zen and Taoist ideas. He argued that the secret of life is to be fully present in every moment, but he didn't promise an easy escape. He said you have to really practice presence, because our minds habitually drift back to what's uncomfortable or overthink what might go wrong. For instance, if you're always making to-do lists and counting how many tasks you have left, you miss the life in front of you. He often joked that people keep buying insurance on their lives and end up too busy to live them. This idea echoes a 19th century philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard, who called anxiety the dizziness of freedom. Kierkegaard observed that when you realize how many choices you truly have, endless paths you could take in life, it can feel like standing on the edge of a high cliff, both exhilarated and terrified. In that moment, anxiety isn't just fear of something bad happening, it's the weight of knowing anything can happen. If you think about it, when you stand at a crossroads deciding a big change, there's a knot in your stomach. According to Kierkegaard, that knot comes from recognizing your own freedom and the responsibility it carries. Anxiety tells you that you're not living on autopilot anymore. Something important is at stake in that decision. Watts would argue that the real problem is not having anxiety, but how we relate to it. We try to solve everything to lock down an unpredictable future, and in doing so we create even more stress. This is what Watts calls the age of insecurity dressed up as progress. We have more technology, more information, yet more confusion about who we are. Every self-help book or guru promising to help you beat anxiety is, according to Watts, basically another attempt to cling to safety. Each one, from strict routines to motivational mantras, is like stacking sandbags. They might hold back the current for a moment, but underneath, pressure is building. Watts gave a powerful final insight. There is no liberation while you insist on resisting the present moment. He insisted you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't claim to want peace while clinging to worry at the same time. Only by deeply accepting life's uncertainty can the mind begin to relax. Anxiety in this lig. HT dissolves not through willpower, but through understanding and surrender. By surrender, he didn't mean giving up. He meant fully engaging with what's happening now, to surf the waves of life instead of building futile walls. To make this concrete, picture a tightrope walker in a storm. If she fights every gust by leaning one way or the other, she may fall. But if she feels the wind, adjusts lightly, maybe even stops and lets the wind pass, she can reach the other side. She's not overcome by the storm, she's working with it. This is how Watts suggests we treat our fears. We lean into them with curiosity rather than rigidity. By doing so, what seemed like an inescapable force starts to feel like a powerful teacher. Watts often illustrated these ideas with humor and warmth. Once he asked, if someone builds a sandcastle by the shore, would they be furious when the tide washes it away? No, the castle was never meant to last. Life is like that sandcastle. When we try to cement our plans against the tides of reality, we create frustration. Imagine a long road trip with no GPS but only a compass. If you obsessively look ahead at every possible turn without ever watching the road under your tires, you'll likely crash. On the other hand, if you keep one eye on the compass and one on the road, you adapt with each mile. Watts would say life requires that second approach, be guided but stay present. He gave another vivid image, riding a bicycle. If you stare at a tree or a pothole on the road, you'll steer into it. But if you look where you want to go and pedal steadily, you navigate around obstacles naturally. Similarly, if we stare at our problems or anxieties, we may steer right into them. If instead we fix our gaze on where we want to be, living truly, loving freely, anxiety has less control. Watts also noted how after World War II, people believed having more stuff would equal more security. Cars, houses, a nicer job, and yet dissatisfaction only grew. He pointed out that in places of plenty, discontent swells. Apparently, what we really hunger for is not things but a sense of being fully alive. He said people over-civilize themselves, pushing to conform and accumulate until they forget how to play, to be spontaneous, to simply be. Ultimately, Watts emphasizes balance. He wouldn't tell you to abandon planning, the rent still needs to be paid, but to temper the urge to control. Plan as you must, but remain flexible. Plan to survive, but remember to live while you're at it. Each time you catch yourself spiraling into fear, thank Watts and others for the reminder. Then try to smile and come back to the moment. With time, this inner switch can mean living with more ease, even in unpredictable times. Watts helps us understand the mind's side of anxiety, but what about the body? Robert Sapolsky, a neuroscientist and biologist at Stanford, gives us a striking picture by comparing humans to animals. He reminds us that our brains are basically prehistoric computers in a modern world full of glass screens and deadlines. Imagine a lion chasing a zebra across the savannah. When the lion pounces, the zebra's body floods with adrenaline and cortisol, mobilizing every resource for a split-second escape. The instant the lion turns away or is driven off, that same stress response shuts off. The zebra shakes it off and returns to grazing, because once the danger is gone, so is the alarm. Humans, according to Sapolsky, have hijacked that same ancient system. Today, your brain can trigger a danger alarm for events that are imagined. A tense meeting, a pending email, a replay of a past mistake. You might be lying in bed in New York, but your body reacts as if a tiger is about to appear behind the door. The physiological signs are identical. Your heart races, muscles tense, breathing quickens, all systems shift to survival mode. The fascinating and frustrating part is our bodies really can't tell the difference between a real threat and a thought. Sapolsky even titled one of his books, Why Zebras Do Get Ulcers. The title speaks volumes. Zebras get chased, but they rarely suffer from digestive problems or chronic stress like we do. Humans stress about future and abstract threats that zebras simply don't. Every unfinished project, every unreturned text message, every what-if triggers our sympathetic nervous system as if it were a saber-toothed cat approaching. For example, you might have read an email last week. Now, 7 days later, your chest still tightens at the thought that the sender hasn't replied yet. Your mind is replaying scenarios of what might go wrong, and your body is living them in real time. Physiologically, this constant activation is brutal on us. Sapolsky's decades of research show that chronic stress drives wear and tear on every system of the body. High blood pressure, heart disease, muscle pain, digestive issues, suppressed immunity, even memory problems. These can all stem from cortisol levels that never dip down at day's end. Think of it as keeping the engine racing in neutral all day. Something is bound to overheat. In one fascinating study, monkeys high in social rank had far fewer stress hormones, while those scuffling at the bottom leaked cortisol all day. The lowly ones developed ulcers and heart trouble, whereas the calm alpha monkeys stayed healthier. In our modern world, we have our own hierarchy of anxieties, traffic jams, corporate ladders, social comparisons that keep our personal stress alarms blaring. But the crucial thing Sapolsky teaches us is this. This physical reaction is not your fault or weakness. It's a natural response gone awry. Your brain is faithfully doing exactly what it evolved to do, but the environment it evolved in has changed dramatically. We haven't updated the wiring, so every imagined threat now looks real. The real problem isn't anxiety itself, but that it is being activated every day for reasons that aren't immediately life-threatening. As he bluntly puts it, humans today face a perpetual lion. Our phones, social pressures, and never-ending to-do lists keep that alarm horn blaring. Sapolsky himself uses humor to make this point. He imagines all those stress hormones as a kind of sabotage kit. Have you ever felt suddenly panicky after a car backfired or a door slammed, only to then think, what was that about? That's your primitive brain hitting a big red panic button. Sapolsky jokes that our brain's fight or flight alarm has an on switch but practically no volume control in modern life. He also points out how our media environment fuels this system. Headlines scream about dangers, even if statistically they're rare. Your brain picks up on that and thinks, better stay alert, so your mind might have read a headline 5 minutes ago, and it's still churning that information, even if you're now calmly reading in your living room. This shows how our environment can keep the alarm stuck in on. The impact of chronic stress is measurable. Scientists can measure cortisol levels in hair and saliva, and people with long-term anxiety often show significantly higher levels than average. We even see changes in the brain. Chronic stress can shrink the hippocampus, affecting memory, and enlarge the amygdala, the fear center. This is physiology, not imagination. Anxiety literally reshapes your brain. The good news is this can change. The brain is remarkably plastic. Even 10 minutes of a calming practice, like focused breathing or listening to soothing music, can reduce cortisol in the short term. Over months of mindfulness or meditation practice, studies show your amygdala can shrink a bit while regions of empathy and self-regulation grow. This demonstrates that we're not helpless, we can consciously retrain our stress response. Sapolsky offers a treasure trove of practical tips as well. One important insight: movement is medicine. He notes that even moderate physical activity, a walk, a run, dancing, lowers cortisol levels and pumps out endorphins. When you jog or dance hard, your body uses up stress hormones and makes feel-good chemicals. Sapolsky's research with baboons showed that the ones who were active had fewer ulcers than the couch potato ones. The same applies to us. He also highlights the power of social connections. Touch and laughter matter. Hugs with friends or pets release oxytocin, a hormone that counteracts stress. He even talks about what he calls the hammock effect, literally taking a break to lie in a hammock or sway in a chair to calm the nervous system. He argues we should schedule breaks as seriously as meetings. Laughter is medicine too. Sapolsky says a good laugh can cause a cascade of physiological changes that lead to relaxation. Here are some concrete strategies Sapolsky recommends. Deep breathing, we've mentioned this, but even Sapolsky emphasizes it. A longer, slower exhale tells your brain, "I'm safe now," helping deactivate fight or flight. Good sleep, aim for regular sleep. Even one night of poor sleep can double stress sensitivity the next day. Sapolsky notes that cortisol and sleep are deeply linked. Strong bonds, keeping friends and family close physically and emotionally, even a pet, provides a buffer. In one study, primates with close companions had measurably lower stress hormones. Healthy routine: eat well, stay hydrated, avoid too much caffeine or alcohol, and get fresh air. These basics can prevent stress from piling up. Mindfulness meditation. Sapolsky points out that regular meditation can rewire the brain's stress centers over time. Even 5 minutes a day helps. Professional help, sometimes therapy or counseling, can help unravel the patterns of chronic stress. Hobbies and fun. Hobbies that immerse you, painting, music, sports, are called flow activities and drop stress. Do not underestimate play. One liberating realization from Sapolsky's perspective is that we can trick our physiology with our behavior. If you stand or sit up straight, shoulders back, it can reduce anxiety because of feedback to your brain. It's like fake it till you make it applied to body posture. Next time anxiety hits, stand tall and breathe, physiology will follow. When you integrate Sapolsky's insights, you learn this: anxiety is not a moral failing, it's a biological signal trying to keep you alive. And like any signal, once we decode it, we can respond in a way that keeps us healthy and moving forward. It's not about silencing your alarm, it's about fixing the cause of the alarm and knowing how to hit snooze effectively when needed. Putting Watts and Sapolsky together, we see a bigger picture. Anxiety can arise from both life's uncertainty and our biology's design. The crucial question becomes, what if anxiety is not just a glitch, but a messenger trying to communicate with us? Let's consult some wise voices. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who explored the unconscious mind, believed that anxiety often hints at a conflict within us. He talked about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject or deny. When the shadow calls out, maybe it's an abandoned dream, a suppressed feeling, or a repressed memory, anxiety can be its voice. Jung famously said, "What you resist persists." If you push away a feeling or truth, it only grows louder beneath the surface. In this view, anxiety might be saying, "Notice me, pay attention to something you've been avoiding." An everyday example: suppose you have always wanted to paint, but secretly tell yourself it's impractical. Years later, you feel a chronic anxiety that something is missing. That anxiety might be the psyche's way of saying, "You left something behind." Jung would invite you to listen and ask, "If I am anxious, what is this feeling trying to save me from or lead me toward?" Sometimes just naming the fear or hidden desire takes away some of its power. There's a part of me that wants to create, you might say, diffusing the puzzle. Soren Kierkegaard, writing almost 2 centuries ago, also found a positive side to anxiety. He called it the dizziness of freedom. When you realize how many choices you truly have, endless paths you could take in life, it can feel like standing on the edge of a high cliff, both exhilarated and terrified. To Kierkegaard, anxiety shakes us out of complacency. As one scholar explains, anxiety brings us from a state of mindless doing to a state of reflection and self-awareness. In other words, feeling anxious might mean you are becoming aware that an important choice or change is at hand, even if you can't clearly see what it is yet. Consider this: on one side you have who you've become because it's safe and expected, and on the other side a version of you that's honest, creative, or free. Anxiety is the friction in the middle. Alan Watts put it bluntly, to be insecure is to be alive. Pretending otherwise is the perfect recipe for collapse. By trying to hold that dual reality apart, we create inner pressure. Anxiety then throws open the door between them and demands attention. Modern psychology is converging on a similar insight. Acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, for instance, teaches that struggling against anxiety usually makes it worse, while accepting it as part of the human experience can free us. Instead of labeling anxiety a disease to eradicate, many therapists now say it can be a signal pointing to our deepest needs. Perhaps your anxiety is telling you that your life is out of sync with your values. Maybe it's alerting you to an unresolved wound from the past or a fear that needs confronting. Some even refer to this as signal anxiety, a concept that anxiety alerts us to inner conflicts or missed opportunities. To illustrate, think of a time you felt anxious and then something changed. Maybe you were avoiding a difficult conversation or you had taken on too much. Suddenly, your chest tightened. In that moment, anxiety can feel like a guardian at the gates, warning, "Stop, something is wrong here." If you listen, it might guide you. Maybe it's time to speak up, set a boundary, or take a leap you've been postponing. Imagine anxiety as an old friend. Yes, an uncomfortable friend, but an honest one. Some of history's greatest stories of personal growth began with anxiety's nudge. Viktor Frankl, a neurologist and psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, wrote that even in the worst circumstances, finding meaning can turn suffering into significance. He didn't know about Watts or Sapolsky, but Frankl's life reflects their wisdom. He found that his deepest purpose helped him endure the most extreme anxiety imaginable. In that sense, noticing why something unsettles us can give our life direction. Or consider the modern psychologist Brené Brown, who studies vulnerability. She says that being vulnerable, essentially admitting fear and doubt, is our greatest strength. Anxiety often appears when we dare to be vulnerable. For example, falling in love can cause incredible anxiety, but it also opens us to joy. Brown would argue that the anxiety is a small price for the connection and authenticity that vulnerability brings. Think of a friend named Alex, a composite story. He was a high-powered lawyer on the outside, but every Friday he felt inexplicably hollow and tense. He got therapy and took medication, but the anxiety never fully went away. One day, he finally realized anxiety was always strongest on Friday afternoons. It turned out, Alex didn't enjoy being a lawyer. He had studied law because it was expected of him. The anxiety in a roundup. Outweigh was nudging him toward this realization. Once Alex acknowledged it, his path became clear. What Alex experienced is not unique. It's as if the universe is handing you a gift wrapped in barbed wire, painful to touch but with something valuable inside. The gift is awareness. Awareness that you might need a change in direction, or to heal an old hurt, or simply to pay more attention to yourself. Even if you still don't know exactly what your anxiety is pointing to, consider this perspective. At the very least, anxiety is telling you you're alive. You are not numbed by life, you care. You feel the fragility of things, which means you have empathy, intelligence, sensitivity. Try reframing a bit. Maybe your overthinking is your brain's creativity running wild. Maybe your paranoia is your inner sentinel making sure no danger slips by unnoticed. Different lens, one that turns labels into clues. Great minds from Jung to Kierkegaard to modern therapists all suggest a similar conclusion. Anxiety can be a guide. It's a messenger that there's something unfulfilled or unacknowledged in your life. Whether it's a fear of not meeting expectations, a longing for a different path, or just a reminder of your freedom to change, anxiety has a story to tell. Let's also acknowledge some common doubts. You might ask, I have a clinical anxiety disorder. Am I supposed to just listen to it? Of course, therapy and medication have their place when anxiety is debilitating. But even then, understanding the meaning behind anxiety can be a powerful complement. Doctors might help quiet the storm, but exploring what the storm is about can give you control back. For example, acceptance-based therapy notes that accepting an anxiety attack instead of freaking out about it can actually shorten it. So this perspective isn't an excuse to ignore problems, it's another tool in your kit. In summary, psychology today and philosophy from centuries past both point to this. Anxiety can be a messenger. It's revealing that something important is going on. Maybe it's about living more authentically, maybe it's about finding meaning. Possibly it's simply a reminder that you're not dead yet, you're awake. And sometimes awakening feels like panic, but it can also lead to profound transformation. Of course, saying listen to anxiety is easier said than done. How do we actually live this new perspective? The key is reconnecting with your body and the present moment. Both Watts and Sapolsky, in their own ways, emphasize this. Here are some concrete steps you can try when anxiety arises. Anchor in your breath. Take a slow, deep breath in for 4 counts and out for 6 counts. Doing this signals your nervous system that the immediate danger has passed and it begins to relax. As you exhale, imagine releasing some of the tension in your body. Use mindful observation. Look around and name what you see, hear, and feel. For example, silently say, I see a blue chair, I hear a distant conversation, I feel the floor under my feet. Connecting to your senses pulls you out of the what-if stories and into the here and now. Check your body, notice tension in your shoulders or jaw and consciously release it. Shake your hands, roll your neck, stretch your arms. Even a quick stretch tells your body it's safe to let go. Sapolsky reminds us that physical movement helps process adrenaline. Stand up, walk for a minute, or dance to a song, whatever breaks the muscle freeze. Label your feelings, quietly say to yourself, there's anxiety again. It might sound funny, but labeling it as a feeling or thought makes it a guest, not a permanent resident. Research shows that simply naming an emotion can reduce its intensity, as if creating a little space around it. Challenge an automatic thought. If your mind throws up a catastrophic thought like "this is unbearable," play detective. Ask, what evidence do I have for that? Has this happened before and I survived? What would I tell a friend who said this? Often just catching one irrational thought can break the panic spiral. Self-compassion, speak to yourself kindly. If you wouldn't harshly criticize a friend feeling anxious, don't criticize yourself. Words like "this is hard, but I can get through this," or "it's okay to feel uneasy," many people do, can actually calm your nervous system. Author Kristin Neff's research shows that people who respond to their own anxiety with compassion fare much better over time. Grounding imagery, some people find it helpful to mentally picture being someplace safe. It could be a real memory or an imagined haven, a quiet beach, a cozy room, wherever you feel calm. Visualizing this safe space can gently shift your brain out of fight mode. Movement in nature walks or any exercise can be a powerful release. Even a short walk, preferably outside, can significantly lower stress hormones. Sapolsky's research echoes this: active bodies handle stress better. Time in nature, often called forest bathing, has been shown to reduce anxiety and cortisol levels dramatically. Connection, reach out to someone. Even a quick text like "I'm feeling anxious, can I vent?" breaks isolation. A hug from a friend or pet stimulates oxytocin, the love hormone, and lowers stress. Remember, stress was made for communities, not individuals. Our primate cousins show less stress when they groom each other. We humans need connection too. Express yourself. Journaling or creative outlets can externalize the chaos in your mind. Write out what's making you anxious as if you're talking to a diary. Sometimes just seeing your thoughts on paper defangs them. Or draw, paint, play music. Any form of expression channels energy you might otherwise spend on the anxiety. These steps aren't magic bullets, they take practice. Think of them as building an emotional toolkit. Each time you use one, you teach your system to pause and respond differently. Over time, your baseline of calm will gradually increase, making anxiety less overpowering. Remember, even if these feel strange at first, they're like muscles you're training. A bit of awkwardness is normal, but with patience, you may find that the knot of panic begins to loosen more quickly each time you try these grounding moves. You're learning not to avoid anxiety, but to meet it skillfully. As our deep dive comes to a close, let's reflect on the journey. What have we uncovered? Anxiety, though painful, is not a personal failure or a sign that something is fundamentally wrong with you. Instead, it is a signal, a kind of alarm bell from your mind and body that something important demands attention. Alan Watts taught us that our suffering often comes from fighting the very nature of life, its impermanence, and from grasping at the illusion of safety. Robert Sapolsky showed us that our biology interprets even imaginary threats as real danger, putting us in a chronic fight-or-flight mode. Carl Jung and Kierkegaard, in their wisdom, saw anxiety as the spark that can awaken us to freedom, authenticity, and choice. Modern psychology echoes these ideas. Acceptance and awareness are more powerful than constant control or repression. Ultimately, anxiety may be the raw material of awakening, instead of being the enemy to sue. Press, it can be the doorway to greater wisdom and presence. The next time your heart starts to pound or your mind churns, remember this new perspective. You are not broken, you are waking up. In those moments, you are more alive, paying attention, and capable of deep caring. Anxiety is telling you you're engaged with life. It could mean you're on the cusp of something meaningful. We'll end with some questions to carry with you. What does your anxiety wake you up to? Is it pointing towards something in your life that you've been ignoring? What truth or desire emerges when you listen? These are not questions with easy answers, but open invitations to introspection. Please share your thoughts below. Did anything in this perspective change how you see your anxiety? Have you ever had anxiety lead you to an important decision? Your experience might shine a light for someone else who's struggling. And if you're still skeptical, that's okay too. Let us know what you think. If you found value in this discussion, consider subscribing. I share more content where philosophy meets psychology, delving into ideas that can change the way you live, not by preaching quick fixes, but by offering insights. By subscribing, you join a community of curious minds and caring hearts. In future videos, we might explore how anxiety can be a companion to creativity, a signal of empathy, or even a window to deeper fulfillment. Remember, life is uncertain, but within that uncertainty lies possibility. When anxiety knocks on your door, try answering with curiosity instead of fear. Stay present, stay kind to yourself, and above all, keep waking up. The waves of life may be unpredictable, but you can learn to surf them with an open heart. Thank you for watching and being brave enough to think differently. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, keep reflecting, and I'll see you on this journey of waking up through life.